Hello and welcome to the top 10 LEGO Castle MOCs of the month. Today we're going to be taking a look at my favorite medieval MOCs made in January 2024. Before we get into the list, if you'd like to enter to be in the next video, please send me a DM on Instagram or tag me in a post of your MOC. All artists featured today will be linked in the description below. Let's get right into the list. Starting off at number 10, we have a medieval house by Trebuchet.Cro. This is a fairly simple looking building, but I love all the wall texturing and the depth that they included in the walls. You've got a little overhang on this side of the building that looks like it may be for a business like a bakery or maybe even a tavern. The depth that you have in this door frame here is incredible. It does look like it would have been a little bit of a pain to put together since those plates look like they're just kind of floating in place. But again, this is a lovely little MOC and the simplicity of it is super appealing to me. I don't know if the yellowed bricks were a stylistic choice, but I love how it looks nevertheless. Please go check out Trebuchet.Cro on Instagram. They have some awesome classic castle style MOCs that I know you will love. Next up at number 9, we have the 4x3-in-1 castle by Madewithbrix. Now, if you're a castle fan, I'm sure you're already familiar with Madewithbrix's other MOCs. They made this insanely detailed 3x3-in-1 rebrickable model back in 2022 that was super popular in the castle community. They are now back with a 4x3-in-1 castle that harkens back to the designs of the Black Knight's castle from the 90s. Now, the model isn't 100% complete quite yet, but he's finally posted a picture of it, so I want to share it with you all here. We only have one angle of it right now, but man, it looks great. It takes a lot of the design cues from the Black Knight's castle and takes those elements and modernizes them with the parts from the 3-in-1 castle. This is best shown in the angled tower to the right of the main gate. Speaking of, the main gatehouse is probably my favorite bit of the MOC. Similar to the original set, you've got a drawbridge, but you also have a portcullis to go with it. I love that added defensibility to the castle. The castle also has a ton of height, and to be honest with you, uses the colors of the original set better than LEGO did themselves. It just has a much sharper look overall. Now, I have a few other angles of the castle that he sent me back in November when he was still working on it, but I don't want to share those publicly yet before he has the chance to share them himself. The full instructions and pictures will be up soon, so please go give Madewithbrix a follow on Instagram so you can see when he's ready to share the full castle. Moving on to number 8, we have the medieval warehouse by Southernbricks. We don't often see industry when it comes to medieval MOCs, so this one was a nice surprise. I love this medieval crane on the backside of the building. I could totally see this house being set on a larger farm scene or even set in a harbor of a medieval city. The MOC was made as a part of Slim Jim Lego and BrickFanUY's 12x12 challenge on Instagram, so you have this awesome little hinge design that allows for a fun interior in each build. That's a part of the challenge. You've got a storage room on the bottom floor and a living quarters on the second with a lot of nice little details, but the best work in this MOC has to be the exterior for me. The white walls are textured really well with smaller plates and modified bricks, and the use of snop bricks to give the half-timbered look works super well. It's done in a very similar way to the medieval blacksmith that we all know and love. You'll also notice the influence from the 2011 Kingdom's Mill Village raid. The roof and crane are both basically improved versions from that original set, and I love that. Taking inspiration from official sets is a great way to kind of form your own building style. I'd highly recommend you go check out Southernbricks on Instagram. They have a ton of awesome stuff featuring castle and other original LEGO themes. Next up at number 7, we have a castle by Mr. Hillen. This is a MOC of an inner courtyard castle vignette. Most of the time, castle vignettes are depicting the outside of castle walls, so this one is super interesting to me. The scale here is perfect. It's at a smaller scale that I tend to build in, so it feels very familiar to me. The dark tan and medium nougat courtyard looks great, and the small raised walkway contrasts super well with the ground beside it. The great thing about building at a smaller scale is that you can pack in a ton of details where you wouldn't be able to if your castle was much larger. The courtyard has some chickens roaming around, a small fountain, and this shrub with a lot of bendy brown bars to make up the branches of a bush. Those small details are just super fun to me. These crates of pumpkins and other plants are super fun, and you can just kind of feel the life in this scene. Mr. Hillen is a super underappreciated MOC builder, and I really hope you all go check out his work on Instagram and Flickr. Next, we have Old White Castle by Johnbtoys at number 6. Perfection. These walls are greebled to perfection. Masonry bricks, 1x1 studs, modified bricks, and more. The wall just looks awesome. The slight angle to it looks great, and the slopes in between each section are wonderfully placed and hides any gaps that can sometimes make an angled wall look a little weird. The terrain around the castle is colored dull, and the dead late autumn trees give a ton of contrast to the monotone castle. I would absolutely love to see this castle expanded out. The terrain reminds me a lot of a cold, dead swamp, so the contrast between that kind of grim location and the warmth of the bright white castle is super cool to me. I hope that the builder continues with it because I think they've really created something special here. Now, the inside of the castle is unfinished, but who cares because the outside just looks great. Please go check out Johnbtoys on Instagram. He makes a ton of awesome mosaics and other MOCs that I'm sure you will love. Cracking into the top 5, we now have a medieval farm by Andrea Valentini at number 5. I love this scene a ton. It's made in that classic castle style that is frankly just timeless. seamless. They've used the pre-molded yellow Tudor walls in the farm, and this MOC just goes to show that you don't need to have a highly detailed style to make a beautiful MOC. The terrain is super simple, but that kind of suits the farm build, as does the minifigure selection. Lots of modern but classic looking prints are included on the figs, and the use of simpler smiley heads works super well. The little grape vineyard that you have near the front is really nice, and the build for that looks great. You've also got a pumpkin farm and a pretty nicely shaped well with this homemade string attached to it. My only critique for the MOC would be that the terrain could use a little bit more polishing, but not too much so that it leaves that classic style that it's in. This is a great scene, and I know you all will love Andrea's other work, so please go check them out on Flickr, linked below. Next up at number 4, we have the Medieval Watermill by Brickbruthus. Now this MOC was technically uploaded on February 1st, but there was a version of it posted in mid-January, so I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit to include it here. And hey, it's my list after all, so whatever. The main star of this MOC is this lovely little watermill with a terrific terrain around it. It's done in a vignette style with a black border, which I think works really well for framing the scene out. And these trees look great. They've got multi-toned leaves that look really nice. My favorite is definitely this one that uses a few sand green parts that just gives a really unique color scheme to it. The usage of the dark bluish gray color for the tree's trunks is another choice that I think worked really well. Again, I think it shines out the best on the one with the sand green leaves, but the other ones look terrific as well. The effect here in the water is awesome, and it really sells that the water is rushing through and by the mill. The snot techniques in the house looks great and makes the half timber style frame the white and light nougat walls in a super convincing way. The slope pieces placed on their sides to give the illusion of the half timbered look works so well and looks wonderful with the window pieces laid on their sides. This building is just jam-packed with texture and detail, and it's incredibly inspiring and has given me a ton of techniques that I'd love to try for myself. Please go check out Brickbruthus, linked below. They have some gorgeous MOCs. Next up at number 3, we have the Fantasy Inn by the Madewithbrix. Medieval and fantasy inns are such a staple in contemporary fantasy media for a good reason. It's just a super fun and lively scene that you can do. From the Prancing Pony in Lord of the Rings to the Inn at the Crossroads in A Song of Ice and Fire, there are a million different fantasy taverns and inns to draw inspiration from. The big appeal for me personally for MOCs like this are the interiors, because if you're gonna make a medieval tavern, I feel like that's a must. So let's take a look at it. On the bottom floor, we've got a ton of minifigures having a drink and meal, and there's even room for a full bar and a stove for the cook. The life pours out from the inside of the inn out onto the patio where you have even more figs standing around eating and drinking. If we then head up the steps to the second floor, we've got a couple of smaller rooms with a simple bed and chest, but you also have a massive room with a fireplace, a double bed, table, and a ton of other knickknacks scattered across the room. Oh, and of course there's access to an outdoor balcony. Moving up to the attic, we've got even more room for storage and a ghost. I just adore how much time and effort went into filling out these interiors of the MOC, and there are a few different references to different pieces of fantasy media that I'm sure you've already noticed. But we also have to talk about the exterior, because it's awesome. Sometimes MOCs will have a great interior but a lacking exterior, and vice versa, but this one has a killer outside as well. It's done in a similar style and size as the Medieval Blacksmith Ideas set, especially with the half timber style that is so common with medieval buildings in LEGO. My favorite bit of the exterior has got to be the overall shaping of the inn. It's extremely well thought out and makes sure to leave space for the interior. This basic tree on the backside of the inn looks great, as does the vines and leaves that are climbing up the chimney. This is a terrific MOC, and I actually think it would be a good contender for LEGO Ideas, but it may be too similar to the Ideas Blacksmith for LEGO to consider it. Nevertheless, this is a great scene, so please go check out the Madewithbrix on Instagram. In second place, we have the Snowborn Outpost by Lords of the LEGO. I'm a sucker for winter MOCs, so this one is right up my alley. The MOC is based on Lord of the Rings, specifically the Riders of Rohan. I love that he chose to use the 2020 Viking helmet for them, as it's a super close look to how they look in the movies. But this is about the MOC, not the figs. The tower that he's made looks really solid, and his choices of texturing bricks work super well here. The arrow slits are done in the same style as the 90th anniversary castle, and I think they look great, as the tower is in a close scale to that set. The top of the towers makes great use of the pyramid 1x1 piece in light bluish gray, and the little archway and brick-built banner is a really fantastic touch. I love that he went with a log house style for the building on the castle. It's not a common choice in most castle MOCs, as seen in this list, but it makes perfect sense as this is a more wintry MOC, so a log house is more suited for that environment. The smoke done in the white ice cream pieces is a classic but great technique for smoke, and this roof is super nice with the layered look he went with. Dark tan is always a great color choice when paired with reddish brown. My only critique of the MOC is that these printed 2x2 wood parts that stick out of the house stand out a little bit too much for my taste. I'm not sure how he could rectify that design, but it's only a small complaint and it doesn't affect the overall aesthetic of the castle. I'm not sure if there's an interior or not, but if there is one, I would love to see it in the future. Lords of the LEGO has a ton of other medieval and medieval adjacent MOCs that I would highly recommend you go check out. He made a really great Frontier Lodge a couple of months ago that I really wanted to include include in November's video, but it wasn't a castle MOC, so I couldn't. Seriously, go check out his page, you'll love his work. And finally, at number 1, we have the Village of Riverwood by BDD Builds. Now, I'm not the biggest Skyrim fan, but I am familiar with Riverwood as it's pretty early game stuff, and man, this MOC is unbelievably convincing. The houses are all done in a style that is super faithful to the original game, and the layout feels just as I remembered when I played the game. I'm sure people that are more familiar with it will notice a ton of details and references that I'm just unfortunately not able to appreciate, but just as a medieval fantasy LEGO layout, it stands out on its own. The terrain details are simple but great, and the log-style houses work so well with that thatched roof design. The river that flows by the mill is really well done, with the different colors representing the different depths of the river. And speaking of, the sawmill section of the MOC is probably my favorite. That section of Riverwood is one that I can remember really well from the game for whatever reason, and his LEGO version seems like the perfect representation of it. I feel like if this MOC was made back between 2011 and 2013, you would have seen it everywhere on the internet. It's just that good. A great example of what you can do with enough passion and work in recreating scenes in LEGO. By the way, as if the sawmill wasn't already great enough, it actually has a real working saw function in it. But if you want to see that, you'll have to go check out BDD Builds on Instagram to see his post. So that concludes the top 10 medieval MOCs of January 2024. If you want to see your MOC in the February video, please send me a DM on Instagram or tag me in your post. Please go check out all the artists featured today, linked in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.